He was on his way to work, dressed sharp, badge in his pocket, proud of the job he earned. But to the officers who stopped him, none of that mattered. They saw only what they wanted to see. In minutes, a routine morning turned into a nightmare of flashing lights, harsh voices, and cold suspicion. They claimed he matched a suspect. But when the truth came out, silence swept over the scene. How could this still happen to someone sworn to uphold the law? And what does it say about the world we live in? It was the kind of morning Marcus lived for. Quiet, crisp, and full of purpose. As a seasoned detective, he took pride in the badge he'd worked years to earn. His routine rarely changed. An early workout, coffee from the corner shop where everyone knew his name, and then the drive downtown to start his shift. He liked the order of it all, the predictability. Marcus wasn't just good at his job, he was respected. Colleagues admired his sharp instincts. Neighbors knew him as the man who volunteered at community events, and kids on his block looked up to him as someone who made it out and gave back. Life wasn't perfect, but he'd built something steady, something solid, something he thought was safe. But that morning felt different, though he couldn't quite say why. A pair of headlights lingered a second too long as he crossed the street to his car. A patrol cruiser idled at the end of the block, its engine humming like a warning. He brushed it off. He was one of them, after all. What Marcus didn't know was that his sense of security was about to shatter. In just a few minutes, the line between protector and suspect would blur in a way he'd never imagined. And the people sworn to uphold the law would look at him, not as a detective, not as a neighbor, not even as a man, just as a target. Marcus pulled out of his driveway, coffee still steaming in the cup holder. The streets were just waking up, sunlight creeping between the buildings. He didn't notice the cruiser at first, trailing just a little too close, but after 3 turns, still there. His detective's instinct stirred. Something wasn't right. Blue, and red lights exploded in his rear view. Marcus eased to the curb, rolling down his window, badge ready. The officer approached, hand already hovering near his holster. "License and registration," the cop barked. No greeting, no explanation. Marcus spoke calmly, just like he'd trained others to do. "Officer, I'm Detective Marcus Reed. Badge, number 6214. Is there a problem?" The words didn't land. The officer's eyes swept over him, cold and suspicious. A second cruiser pulled up, doors slamming, boots hitting pavement. 2 more officers flanked his car. "Step out of the vehicle, now." Marcus felt heat rise in his chest. He complied, hands visible, movements slow, too slow for a man who knew this dance by heart. 1 officer circled behind him, another scanned. His car like they expected to find stolen goods. "You match the description of a burglary suspect," one of them said flatly. Marcus almost laughed at the absurdity. He was wearing a tailored suit, badge clipped to his belt, service weapon holstered. But the way they looked at him, none of it mattered. "What description?" Marcus asked, keeping his voice even. "Black male, mid-30s, driving a dark sedan." That was it. No height, no weight, no distinguishing features. Just him, just his skin. As Marcus tried again to show his badge, a hand shoved him against the hood of his car. The metal burned against his palms. His heart pounded, not from guilt, but from anger and something worse. The creeping fear that even his badge wouldn't save him this time. People on the sidewalk slowed to watch. A mother clutched her child's hand tighter. A man raised his phone, recording. "Officer, I am a detective," Marcus shouted, his voice cracking under the weight of disbelief. "Check my credentials." But they didn't check. Not yet. 1 officer tightened his grip on Marcus's arm. Another unlatched. His holster. For a split second, Marcus saw the fear in their eyes. The kind of fear that leads to mistakes. Fatal ones. Sirens wailed in the distance. More units on the way. And Marcus realized, the longer this lasted, the greater the chance someone would make the wrong move. Then a voice on the radio crackled. "Suspect spotted fleeing on foot 2 blocks east." The officers froze. Their eyes darted between Marcus and each other. They hadn't caught a criminal. They'd cornered one of their own. But would they admit it or double down to save face? Marcus's pulse thundered in his ears. The sun, bright, moments ago, now felt like a spotlight, exposing him to every accusing stare. The officer's grip on his arm tightened, knuckles white, while another kept his hand hovering over his weapon, indecision etched across his face. "Don't move," the officer barked, voice shaking, not with authority, but with fear. Fear of what Marcus represented. Fear of making a mistake, yet barreling toward one anyway. Marcus forced himself to breathe, to stay calm. But every nerve screamed that one wrong twitch could end everything. His badge, still clutched in his hand, might as well have been invisible. In their eyes, it wasn't a shield. It was a challenge. A crowd gathered now, phones up, voices rising. "Let him go!" someone yelled. Another shouted, "He's a cop!" The officers didn't flinch, their tunnel vision locked on Marcus, every second raising the stakes. Then it happened. The officer behind him shoved harder, forcing Marcus against the hood. His cheek scraped hot metal. The other officer drew his weapon, barrel glinting in the morning light. Time slowed to a crawl. "Last warning! Hands where I can see them!" Marcus froze, heart hammering so hard he thought it might burst. He had trained rookies for moments like this, telling them to stay cool, stay professional. But standing on this side of the badge, he understood how quickly procedure could turn into something deadly. The radio crackled again. "Suspect confirmed fleeing on foot, not in a vehicle." The words hung in the air like smoke. The officer with his gun didn't lower it. He hesitated, sweat dripping down his brow. Would pride override truth? Would fear pull the trigger before reason caught up? And in that unbearable silence, Marcus realized something chilling. This wasn't just about a mistake. It was about whether they'd admit they were wrong or make sure he never lived to tell the story. The weapon finally lowered, but not because of an apology. One officer muttered something about a misunderstanding, while the other avoided Marcus's eyes entirely. No one said sorry. No one admitted how close they'd come to destroying his life in a single heartbeat. Marcus stood, there, heart still pounding, every muscle trembling, not from fear but from anger. He had survived the stop, but something inside him had shifted. The badge he'd once worn with pride now felt heavier, almost hollow. If even he, a detective, wasn't safe from suspicion, who was? Back at his car, Marcus sat for a long time before driving off. The crowd had dispersed. The videos would circulate online, dissected and debated by strangers. Some would defend the officers. Others would call it what it was, profiling, pure and simple. In the days that followed, Marcus replayed every second of that stop. He thought about how easily it could have ended with flashing lights, sirens, and his name on the evening news. Not as Detective Reed, but as just another black man matching a description. This wasn't an isolated mistake. It was a reflection of something deeper, something millions face daily without a badge to flash or a uniform to prove their worth. Marcus knew he had a choice, stay silent or speak out, even if it meant challenging the very system he'd sworn to serve. Because this wasn't just about one traffic stop. It was about trust shattered, dignity stripped away, and a question no one should have to ask. What good is the law if it doesn't protect us all equally? So ask yourself, how many more mistakes like this before something changes? How many more lives shaken or lost before we finally decide that enough is enough?